My name is Lisa Graham. I'm the Evelyn Berry Director of Choral Music at Wellesley College, and we are beyond thrilled that you're here this evening. We opened tonight's concert with a set of Norwegian and a Swedish troll proverb as a bit of a prelude and to showcase some of the music that chamber singers just performed with a wonderful group called Skylark last weekend. So we continue with something very different. It's a troll curse.
To leave an enemy without an answer, say these words to him. Aglaria pid Bulgaria ananustepta, and blow in his direction. Then he will not know which way he is headed and cannot answer you.
Thank you. As we continue our program tonight, we reflect on the solemn nature of the subject that we're singing about, and the musicians that we are celebrating tonight, and many lives lost, not just during the Holocaust, but sadly, even recently. And so we hope that tonight's music will serve as a tribute to these musicians and to honor them, but also to celebrate, and to celebrate the living, and to celebrate joy and the full spectrum of human emotions that are always present in any human endeavor. Next week will be two important anniversaries. We have the Veterans Day Armistice, and also the anniversary, I think the 70th of what is known as Kristallnacht, or the first pogrom of the war, where so many synagogues and Jewish businesses and residences and communities were affected and destroyed, and really the start of something really terrible, the continuation of something really terrible. So the first piece that we sing tonight is based on a poem by Sarah Teasdale. It's called There Will Come Soft Rains, and she wrote it in 1920. Perhaps in response to the war to end all wars, and it did not end all wars. And her poetry is beautiful, and it's a bit sad. It talks about how, we may annihilate each other, but nature won't notice. Beauty will continue, and nature and wildlife will continue to do what they do, even if we are gone. And it's a sobering thought. Composer Tom Vinieri has written this, and we understand he's watching from the UK tonight. Thanks for staying up, Tom. But he said it to be a beautiful piece. When you think about the text and how disturbing it can be and the thought of it, he sets it in a beautiful way, maybe to remind us of the beauty that's at stake when we lose sight of each other. So please enjoy There Will Come Soft Rain. It's my pleasure now to welcome a very special person to me and to the field of music in the Holocaust. Dr. Nick Strimple joins us today from Los Angeles, where he serves in the USC School of Choral Music, where I got 9 degrees. And he's the whole reason that I became very interested in this subject 20 years ago as a graduate student, and has been my mentor ever since. He's here to tell you a little bit about Theresienstadt, from which the next set of music will come from. And he'll speak to you a couple of times throughout the program tonight. So please welcome Dr. Strimple.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here. In a way, I feel like I'm coming home when I come to Wellesley, because my daughter was a member of the class of 2003. And we've had great experience with Wellesley since we first helped her move into VB Hall in 1999. And I always, it's a very strange thing, because I've been here now since Lisa has been here. I think this is my 3rd time. And I always feel like I'm coming home. I don't know why that is, but it's a good feeling. I've been asked to tell you about these first, a little bit about the first 4 pieces of the Theresienstadt set. And I'll tell you about the Victor Ullmann first, because they're doing 2 of the folk song arrangements that he made while he was imprisoned in Theresienstadt. Ullmann came later to the camp than the other major musicians that were there. But when he got there, he started right off. He got with the program immediately and created what was called a studio for new music. And he encouraged people to write music for the concerts. He wrote a lot of music for the concerts, and he also wrote music criticism. He critiqued the concerts, and these critiques were published. He also wrote essays about music and philosophy and what it meant to be a musician laboring under the situation that these folks were in. And he left us with perhaps the most memorable phrase, and it explains what they were doing. He said, "Our efforts in regard to art were commensurate with our will to live." Now, the idea of music is in these camps is controversial. There are a lot of people, survivors, people in the camps at the time too, who didn't like the idea of music in the camp. One of the rabbis in the Kovno ghetto, for instance, said you shouldn't dance in a graveyard. So there are certainly two points of view. But what we're doing tonight is celebrating the point of view that saw hope in their situation. And this is what Ullmann did. He found a book, either somebody had brought it with them, or it was in the town library. A songbook, a Zionist songbook that was published in 1931 in Berlin, called the Maccabi Liederbuch. And he got these folk songs out of that. He didn't know anything about being Jewish. He was completely assimilated. In fact, he was an Austrian nobleman. And he didn't speak Yiddish, he didn't speak Hebrew. And he got somebody he found this book. And he made these arrangements that are very effective. And they're a little quirky too, but the quirkiness is understandable when you find out that Ullmann studied composition with Arnold Schoenberg. Now, the other song that's going to come in between these two folk songs is the most enigmatic piece that came out of the camps. Gideon Klein simply called it Hebrew song. Everybody thinks of it as a lullaby now because of the text, or what there is of the text. There are only these two phrases, and yet we know from the manuscript and the way he notated things that there must have been additional text. But nobody knows what that text might have been. A lot of effort has been put into searching for a source song, because it has some elements of a folk song. And yet nobody's ever been able to find a folk song with this tune or anything close to this text. We know that it was written for a girls' ensemble in Theresienstadt and performed on the early in December in 1941, right a month or so after the first people had been sent there. And you should know about this camp. You know, this model camp that Hitler wanted to use for a propaganda film, it may not have been as bad as Auschwitz, but 37,000 people died there. And it was space that was made for 5,000 people. It's a little town. 5,000 people were moved out by the Nazis. And almost 40,000 were moved into that space. At one point in the war, the population swelled to about 107,000. So it was no picnic in this place. And yet these musicians wrote music, they performed music, they staged operas. One of them said that music was life. And so Klein writes this little piece right after he gets there. And nobody at that time knew he was a composer, 23 years old, pianist. And he writes this for the girls' ensemble, and nobody knows what it means. The last piece of this set is Birdsong, and this is written after the war. This is written when? This is a recent piece. Yeah. And I started thinking about all of the settings of the children's poetry. They're published in a book called I Never Saw Another Butterfly. And there's more than one English edition of it. These poems were first set to music in 1964 by the film composer Franz Foxman, who was one of the Jewish immigrants to Hollywood. After that, the children's poetry has been set many, many times. And I have wondered, this evening I was thinking about what other event in history has had so much music written about it. Because we're in a time now where a lot of people, for some reason, are writing Holocaust-related music. And I tried to think of, the only thing that I can think of that has had as much music written about it as the Holocaust is Christmas. I mean, there are pieces about other events, but constantly people are still writing about the Holocaust. It has touched a nerve, and it's, now that we're 60 years away from the war. So Paul Reed has written this lovely setting of this children's poem that was written and published in Theresienstadt, Birdsong.
No!
pieces from two very different civilian internment camps. The first one is from the Kreuzberg camp that was run by the Germans, and the other is from a camp in Java that was run by the Japanese. And I think Dr. Graham is going to tell you a little bit about that. The Kyrie from the Missa Brevis, or Missa Brevis in Nativitatis, the full title, by William Hillsley, is very close to my heart because I knew Billy Hillsley quite well. He was a school teacher, and he taught in the Quaker International School in Utrecht. His mother was German, his father was English. He was born in England. His parents divorced. His mother took him back to Germany with her, but he had a British passport, and the British passports did not indicate whether people were Jewish or not. And when the war started in the West, when the Nazis invaded Holland, and they overran the country in about 10 days, notices were put out for all British and French civilians to appear at certain places at certain times with a small suitcase, and they were taken to these internment camps. Billy was first sent with a group of English men to a processing camp and then to a camp in Germany called Toast. And without warning, after they had been there some time, he and 5 other men, who also happened to be Jews, were suddenly moved out and sent to Kreuzberg. The Nazis had a way of dealing with Jews in prisoner of war and internment camps. They would move them around like this to other internment camps, and then, oops, into a concentration camp, and the records would get lost. And Billy was quite frightened when they were sent to, he and his 5 friends were sent to Kreuzberg. But before long, a truck came full of other men, and it was the other Englishmen that had been arrested at the same time. And it seems that they had gone to the commandant at Toast and threatened him, because the internment camps were operated under the same rules as prisoner of war camps, so that they had to follow the Geneva Convention rules. And the Swedish Red Cross made regular checks at these camps. And they threatened to talk to the Swedish Red Cross about the Jews being moved out. So the commandant simply moved all of them to Kreuzberg too. And this group of English guys protected the 6 Jews among them for the rest of the war. When they came to Kreuzberg, Billy, he knew what they were doing, and as a thank you, he wrote a Missa Brevis for Christmas. He did not set the credo, which makes sense. And they were so thankful that then one of them created a woodcut for a cover, hoping that the piece would be published after the war. Unfortunately, well, it was published after the war, but they didn't publish it and use the woodcut as the cover, I'm sorry to say. This mass is a little miniature jewel, in my opinion. It doesn't sound German, it doesn't sound English, it doesn't sound Jewish, whatever that is. It has it's a very cosmopolitan sound. It embraces everybody. And he wrote it as a gift. He also wrote a number of musicals while he was there that were staged. And after the war, he went back to the same job he had before. And he taught his students these musicals. One year they'd do Oklahoma, and then the next year they'd do one of the shows that he had written. And he never talked to them about the circumstances under which these shows were written. He didn't think it was important. He had no idea until students started coming to him as adults, wanting to know more about his experience. And so we have the Mass, and they're going to perform the Kyrie now, and then Dr. Graham will tell you about the Dvorak.
The next selection we'll be doing, you may recognize as the Largo movement from Dvorak's New World Symphony. This comes out of an extremely interesting musical endeavor in a horrifying camp in the Japanese-occupied Dutch, British, and Australian prisoners camp in Sumatra. And these women in this camp were led by a musician named Margaret Driver, and she had an idea to make some music together. There were no instruments in the camp, and there were no sheet music. There was nothing really to work from. So from her memory, she wrote out melodies that she remembered from days before the camp. Melodies that were familiar to her, melodies that she loved. And she formed a vocal orchestra from the women who were there. And they practiced very diligently and held their first concert in December 1943. And they held the concert for other prisoners, but sometimes the guards would come in as well and listen. And some of the prisoners said that they couldn't believe that there would be such beauty, and they would shed tears. They could not believe that beauty could exist among the lice and the cockroaches and the smell of the latrines and the absolute terror that people felt. And yet, this beautiful women's ensemble sang. They sang Dvorak, they sang Bach, they sang music by many master composers. So tonight we're going to give you the women's orchestra, vocal orchestra version of Largo. Margaret Driver did write many arrangements, but unfortunately she did perish in the camp, and one of her friends, Nora Chambers, who was there, remembered these arrangements and wrote them out the best of her ability. Largo. As we prepare for Anne Frank, A Living Voice, a piece by Linda Tutis Haugen, a composer from Minnesota, we'd like to welcome Brian Kane from the Anne Frank Institute from New York, who's come up not only to speak to you tonight, but also to introduce this exhibit that we have here at the college. We've had it up through this week and into next week for everyone to come and visit and experience Anne's story. But we're so grateful to Brian for coming up to Boston and to Wellesley, and would you please welcome him as he introduces Anne's exhibit and his role with the Institute.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much to Wellesley College, to Dr. Graham, to Emma for inviting me here. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. Like Dr. Graham said, my name is Brian Arcane. I'm the Associate Director of Education at the Anne Frank Center for Mutual Respect based in New York City. We are a national organization that upholds the story and the legacy of Anne Frank throughout the United States. We are connected officially with the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam, the Anne Frank Fonds in Basel, Switzerland, as well as the more than 90 other Anne Frank organizations around the world. We are an education and arts nonprofit. We travel the country and we bring exhibits like these, in-school programs, artist in residency programs, as well as performances of Anne's life to libraries, to museums, to schools, to universities around the country. What we do at the Anne Frank Center is not just to uphold the legacy of Annalise Marie Frank, but to look at her impact on our lives today, to see how it is we can use the story of Anna to contribute to the betterment of our lives today and into the future. Anti-Semitism, unfortunately, has not gone away, continues to be a presence in our lives every day. We mourn the loss of those most recently lost in Pittsburgh just last week. We mourn for those who have family and friends in Jewish cemeteries in New York and Texas that were defamed on yesterday. We, though, are a non-religious organization, so to us, hate comes in many forms. So when the LGBT community is attacked, it's our business. When women, as a gender, are under threat around this country, it is our business. When people with disabilities are chastised, are defamed, it is our business. It is my business and it is your business to stand up for the rights of people all around the world. And we at the Anne Frank Center, through our exhibitions, through our educational programs around the country and around the world, through our colleagues, hope to achieve the goal of some kind of world peace, of some kind of coming together. We do that by remembering the past. We do that by looking to our children, university age, down to the third graders that I work with in low-income areas in New York City, in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana, in Idaho City, Idaho, and all over this country. And I hope that you will join us in that fight, in that mission, to find and to build the better world that Anne Frank dreamed for us all. I'm so thankful to be here. I hope that you'll stick around after. I'll be answering questions about the exhibit. Thank you so much again, and please enjoy the evening. Thank you.
I am Anne Frank. Hear my voice. July 11th, 1942. It is the silence that frightens me so, in the evenings and at night. I can't tell you how oppressive it is to never go outdoors. I'm very afraid that we shall be discovered and shot. We have to whisper and tread lightly during the day, or the people in the warehouse might hear us. Someone is calling me. January 13th, 1943. Terrible things are happening outside. At any time of day, helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. Families are torn apart. Men, women, and children are separated. Everyone is scared. The entire world is at war, and the end is nowhere in sight. All we can do is wait for it to end. Jews and Christians alike are waiting. The whole world is waiting, and many are waiting for death.
my voice. February 22nd, 1944. I go to the attic almost every morning. This morning, Peter was cleaning up. He finished quickly and came over to where I was sitting on the floor. The two of us, Peter and I, looked out at the blue sky, the bare chestnut tree glistening with dew, the seagulls and other birds glinting with silver as they swooped through the air, and we were so moved and entranced that we couldn't speak. We breathed in the air, looked outside, and both felt that the spell shouldn't be broken. As long as this exists, this sunshine and cloudless sky, and as long as I can enjoy it, how can I be sad? March 7th, 1944. I lie in bed at night after ending my prayers with the words, "Thank you, God, for all that is good and dear and beautiful," and I'm filled with joy. At such moments, I don't think about all the misery, but about the beauty that still remains.
1944. For a long time now, I didn't know why I was bothering to do any work. The end of the war seemed so far away, so unreal, like a fairy tale. Until Saturday night, I slid to the floor and began saying my prayers. I drew my knees to my chest, laid my head on my arms, and cried. I finally realized that I must do my work, to get on in life, to become a journalist, because that's what I want. I know I can write. I don't want to have lived in vain. I want to go on living even after my death. I'm so grateful to God for giving me this gift, which I can use to express all that's inside me. When I write, I can shake off my cares. My sorrow disappears. My spirits are revived. April 11th, 1944. One day this terrible war will be over. The time will come when we'll be people again, and not just Jews.
Oh.
Anne Frank. Hear my voice. April 19th, 1944. Is there anything more beautiful in the world than to sit before an open window and listen to the birds singing, feel the sun on your cheeks, and have a darling boy in your arms? It is so soothing and peaceful to feel his arms around me, to know that he is close by, and yet to remain silent. This tranquility is good. Oh, never to be disturbed again.
The Wellesley College Choir stands in solidarity with the victims of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. The music you have heard this evening is to honor those affected during the Holocaust. We send our thoughts to those affected, and with that, and wish that history does not continue to repeat itself, and people remember and learn from the devastating tragedy of the Holocaust, to remember to have hope in times of darkness, like Anne Frank and those in concentration camps. Thank you.
This is the song
We are going to invite Kira Shelley down to conduct the last piece. Before we do, Nick Strimple has some parting words on Zol Schoen Kumen de Geula.
None of us, unless we are survivors of the Holocaust ourselves, and I venture to say most of the people in this audience, perhaps everyone in the audience, is not falls into the category of not being a Holocaust survivor. I hope we do have some, but for the rest of us, we don't have a frame of reference in our lives to understand what the Holocaust victims went through. We can understand it intellectually, especially if we know survivors and they've told us their stories. But we don't have anything that's happened to us that can compare. And yet we all want the same thing. We all strive for some kind of peace, not only in our own lives, but in the lives around us. And the big difference has always been, the big argument between those people who find peace in the celebration of other people and their gifts and what they bring to the table. In other words, people who relish diversity. And the fundamentalists who think that the only way to have peace is for everybody to do it their way. What you just heard, this wonderful new song, One Voice, is an expression of this desire that comes from people like most of us who don't have a frame of reference in our own experience for the Holocaust. This last song was written by, the text was written by a man named, I have to work on his name. I know, Shmerka Kaczynski. And he was a very, very interesting and brave man because he was in the Eastern ghettos. He got out, he managed to escape, he fought with the partisans. He would go back into certain ghettos with information, got back out, he fought with the partisans till the end of the war, and he wrote a lot of songs. You know, the Ashkenazi Jewish tradition is a tradition of song. Everything in life is celebrated or commemorated in songs in that tradition. And he wrote a lot of songs, partisan songs, and songs from the ghetto about what life was like. And right after the war, he went to a camp that had been liberated, and he saw the state of affairs of these people who had survived, and he wrote this text. And it is calling for Messiah to come. He had no way of knowing that on many occasions, we have lots of testimony to this effect, that people going to the gas chambers saying the Ani Ma'amin, I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Messiah. Yea, though he tarry, still he will come. And Kaczynski writes his kind of secular version of this, about the Messiah coming and drinking a toast to this new world. They believed in hope. And I have to admit, sometimes I don't feel very hopeful. I remember seeing a bumper sticker in Los Angeles some time ago that said, "Since I gave up hope, I feel much better." Well, okay, I know where that guy stands. But the point of this evening's concert is not to give up hope. These people in Theresienstadt did not give up hope. Anna Frank did not give up hope. The Kazarczynski did not give up hope. And the young person who wrote One Voice has not given up hope. And we have to leave tonight, I think, hopefully with a new spirit of hope and the desire to work towards fulfilling a real just, honest and just society that will bring us peace.
come and see us. A warm welcome to all of our alums who've come tonight. We would love to see you too. And we wish you all a very, very beautiful evening. Thank you.